Today's recap enters the dramatic world of the movie Gifted 2017, a captivating journey of a 7-year-old mathematical prodigy who faces a custody battle over her extraordinary intellect when she surprises everyone with her prodigious brilliance. The show begins with Frank, a young man who is convincing his niece Mary for her first day at school. Mary is in a foul mood because she is not fond of the outfit she has to wear, and she also doesn't want to go. Frank and Mary live in a small home with their one-eyed cat Fred. Mary wants Frank to continue homeschooling her, but he says he's taught her everything he knows, and she needs the experience. As soon as he sees the reluctant, sulking Mary off to school, he's confronted by Roberta, who's his landlady and friend and cares deeply for Mary. She tells him to get in his car and bring Mary back before it's too late, afraid that she will be taken away once everyone realizes she's a child prodigy. Frank tries to calm her down, saying Mary needs friends and social skills. Roberta isn't convinced, but there's nothing she can do, so she lets go. At school, Mary is shown bored out of her mind as her teacher Bonnie goes over first-grade math problems with the rest of the class. Mary eventually speaks up, making it known that the lack of challenge is beyond her ability to bear. Bonnie warns her for speaking out of turn and starts asking her increasingly difficult arithmetic problems to make a point. To her surprise, Mary answers them all and also solves a difficult multiplication problem on her own. She even states the square root of the number, which further surprises Bonnie. Bonnie gets confused and starts to think that Mary has some exceptional prodigious intellect. After recess, the principal requests a walk-in observation of Bonnie's class. As soon as she introduces herself to the children, Mary demands to know if she's the boss and upon confirmation, demands that she call Frank right away and tell him to get her out of there. When Frank comes to pick Mary up, Bonnie catches up to him on the front yard and tells him she thinks Mary might be a gifted child. Frank chalks it off to some simple algorithm he's taught her and says that Mary studied the Trachtenberg method to allow herself to memorize equations and arithmetic computations. Bonnie is unable to accept his claims and Frank walks away before she can discuss the matter with him any further. Bonnie later looks up the Trachtenberg method to see what Frank was talking about. Frank takes Mary out for a day at the beach on a boat, while also lecturing her on why she shouldn't have yelled at the principal. Mary does appear to show remorse and apologizes for screwing up. They go for a test ride in the ocean and spend the rest of the day on a beach. Frank advises her to make some friends in her life and have compassion for others because he knows that Mary often prefers to live in her own prodigious life. The next day at school, Miss Bonnie tries to give Mary some special attention because she now knows that Mary is an exceptional kid. Mary introduces her classmates to her cat Fred and shows them his exceptional one-eyed appearance. The classmates show deep interest in the cat, and Miss Bonnie also feels happy to see Mary try to befriend other kids. The students then go through a small test in which Mary quickly solves all the equations one after the other and finishes the test. Bonnie is not much surprised by her mathematical intellect and gives her some more problems to solve. Mary does the same with this second sheet of questions, and Bonnie watches her and gives her a friendly smile. Since Mary has now grabbed the interest with her mathematical brilliance, Bonnie does some more research on the internet and finds out that Mary's mom Diane was a well-known brilliant mathematician. Diane was working on one of the Millennium Prize problems until she committed suicide when Mary was only 6 months old. She then decides to meet Frank at the bar she knows he hangs out on Friday nights and surprises him with her unexpected appearance. She confronts him about Mary's past and learns the backstory. It is revealed that Diane was his sister and appeared at his doorstep out of the blue one night with Mary, who was just a baby at the time. She said she needed to talk to him, but Frank, already late for a date, told her they'd talk when he got back. When he returned home after his date, Diane had committed suicide in the bathroom and Mary was in his living room. He's been raising her since then. Bonnie then raises a question about Mary's father, to which he adds that Diane had a boyfriend who left her when she got pregnant. Mary is on the school bus the next day and sees her classmate walking with a zoo diorama that Mary finds better than the one she made. Another senior kid trips him and causes him to break his diorama, mocking the poor boy in front of the other kids. Mary yells at the bully for what he did, and when he asks what she'll do, Mary grabs a textbook from another kid and whacks him in the face, breaking his nose. Frank is called in after the incident. The principal considers expelling Mary, but then suggests granting her a scholarship to attend the Oaks Academy for Gifted Education, as someone with Mary's intellect would be more suited for that environment. However, Frank refuses to allow it, feeling that Mary needs a normal education and childhood. He also feels proud because his 7-year-old niece stood up against a bully. Mary later apologizes to her class for hitting that bully, but then takes the opportunity to mention how great her classmate's diorama was, leading the class to applaud the boy and make him happy. Frank and Mary receive an unexpected visit from Frank's estranged mother Evelyn, and Frank successfully presumes that Mary's principal might have contacted her to take Mary away from him. She's a rich, bossy Englishwoman whose ideas of life and ambition Frank clearly disagrees with. She meets Mary for the first time and gives her a laptop as a gift. Evelyn then takes the time to criticize Frank's living arrangements and Mary's form of education, which doesn't surprise Frank. She claims she is looking out for Mary's best interest and asks Frank what Diane would think if she saw how Mary lives now. Evelyn wants to take Mary away to Boston and give her the best education she can get to put more potential in her future. When Frank disagrees to send Mary away, she decides to take him to court. Frank now suspects that he might lose Mary because of Evelyn, so he tries to spend some quality evenings with Mary. They spend some time with the sunset and have some memorable conversations. Frank and Evelyn then become involved in a custody battle. Evelyn brings her lawyer while Frank is represented by his. Evelyn's lawyer argues that Frank illegally gained custody of Mary and is living with the kid in unclean conditions. Frank's lawyer stands against this and easily defends Frank's living conditions. For this hearing, it is settled that Frank and Mary will be checked on while Evelyn will have some time to herself with Mary. Roberta gets angry on Frank because she had warned him not to let Mary go out in the world and keep her prodigious character hidden from the people. However, she still stands by him and decides to let Mary spend the evening in her house. Mary is happy to stay with Roberta for the night because she's her best friend. Frank leaves Mary with Roberta and goes out for drinks with Bonnie. They have some fun over drinks and completely waste our time with their so long boring talk. The next thing we see is Bonnie lying naked in his bed, which never happens with me in real life whenever I meet a girl over some drinks. Anyway, Mary unexpectedly goes over to her house the next morning while Bonnie is there wrapped in a bed sheet. Mary catches her because this stupid school teacher went to a bathroom with a complete bed sheet over her body. She gets angry on Frank for this instead of blaming herself because literally no one in this world would go to a bathroom wearing a bed sheet. Bonnie leaves extremely embarrassed while Frank talks to Mary. He scolds her for leaving Roberta's home when she wasn't supposed to. She starts crying and thinks Frank can't have a personal life because of her. Frank later goes to her room and apologizes for getting mad at her. Frank also receives a letter from the court which says that Evelyn is allowed to spend some time with Mary. She takes Mary to Boston for 2 days and shows her pictures of her mother Diane. Evelyn also tells her about Diane's research into the Navier-Stokes problem, which Diane had devoted her life to. In the meantime, we see one of Evelyn's colleagues is preparing a difficult problem which Mary is supposed to solve. However, they are intentionally writing a wrong equation just to make it look like an impossible equation to Mary. When Evelyn takes Mary to review that equation, she appears confused, which he dismisses as her simply not being able to comprehend just yet. The stupid prick is expecting her to solve it despite the fact that he has written it wrong. Evelyn takes Mary away and feels annoyed about what just happened. However, Mary states that she was confused because the equation was wrong and a negative sign was missing in the equation. Evelyn takes her back in and asks her to write the correct equation, which completely surprises the stupid colleague. She is now able to solve the problem herself and surprises everyone by filling the blackboard with some dangerous mathematics. Mary returns home after spending 2 days in Boston with Evelyn. The court now orders Mary to see a psychologist, but Mary is not happy with all of this. Mary expresses that she likes Evelyn, but she still doesn't want to live with her because she is a bossy woman. Nonetheless, Mary sees the psychologist and is forced to answer some questions. The psychologist learns much about Mary's life, including that she has no friends her age and that she sees Roberta as her closest friend. She appears concerned when Mary mentions that she and Frank watch UFC fights every week. During the next court hearing, Mary's biological father testifies on behalf of Evelyn. Frank's lawyer presses him over his non-involvement in Mary's life, not even being able to know her middle name. The judge rules against Mary's father for any sort of custody and sides with Frank for this hearing. When Mary learns that her father was around, she breaks down in tears over him not bothering to visit her. To cheer her up, Frank and Roberta take Mary to the hospital to see a family gathered as they await the birth of a new child. When they learn that a boy has been born, the family cheers. Frank tells Mary that this is what it was like when she was born, and it was him that stepped out to deliver the news. In the next court hearing and over that period of time, we find out more about the friction between Evelyn and Frank. Evelyn is disappointed in her dead daughter for being too weak to complete the Millennium Prize problem, disappointed in Frank for having quit his professorship at Boston University, and resentful of her late husband for disrupting her successful career. She's also having problems with her current husband, and they are separated. Evelyn's lawyer then grills Frank as he testifies regarding his current job doing freelance boat repairs when he used to have a job as an assistant professor at Boston University, as well as a previous arrest for assault. The lawyer continues to insist that Frank is depriving Mary of a potentially fruitful future. Frank's lawyer in turn presses Evelyn about the circumstances surrounding Diane's passing. Frank doesn't openly accuse of her anything, but insists that Evelyn will deny Mary the normalcy a child needs in her life, and that him being a freelance boat repairman is perfectly fine. Roberta stands by Frank throughout the ordeal, and his lawyer does a good job defending him. Frank's lawyer later goes to his home and tells him that he and the judge have come to an agreement where Mary would be placed in foster care until the age of 12 when she can decide where to live, out of fear that they will lose the case and Frank would lose full custody of Mary. Frank is not in the favor of this deal, but his lawyer urges him to take it. Crushed under the guilt of not having stayed with Diane the night of her death and his insecurity over his capability for raising Mary, he yields. Frank meets the foster parents and sees that they have a nice home and family. He leaves Mary there, and they have a tearful goodbye where Mary begs Frank not to leave her. Frank must regrettably walk away even as Mary cries and screams for him. Roberta also cries for Mary and misses her because she was her best friend all this time. After a day or two, when Frank tries to visit Mary, the foster father tells him that she doesn't want to see him. Frank somehow doesn't believe him but has no other option but to walk away. Bonnie comes across a flyer for their missing cat, Fred. She immediately calls Frank to inform him about this, but he does the most sensible thing at the moment and declines her call. She then sends the picture to Frank, and he finally finds out that the foster family has put Mary's beloved one-eyed cat up for adoption. He rushes to the animal shelter and rescues Mary's cat and 2 other last minute before they are put down. He finds out from the front desk staff at the shelter that the cat was brought there due to allergy issues. Knowing it's Evelyn who's allergic to cats, he makes a quick stop at his place and then rushes to the foster family's home to confront Evelyn. As he suspected, she's in the guest house with Mary and 2 tutors. Upon seeing him, Mary runs away. Evelyn tries to go after them, but Roberta physically blocks her way and stops her. Mary is absolutely furious and refuses to see Frank after he's left her with the foster family despite her relentless begging and tears. Frank manages to catch up to Mary and ask for forgiveness. Mary stops fighting and hugs him, and her spirits get even more elevated as she finds out her cat is at Frank's place safe and sound. When Mary and Frank return to the guest house, Roberta takes Mary to the car and Frank orders the tutors out. Frank then presents her with something she had never known of before, Diane's completed work on the Navier-Stokes problem. Evelyn says she doesn't believe it because she would have shared it with the world. Frank tells her that Diane gave him clear instructions not to have the work published until after their mother's death. He tells her that she can go ahead and publish it and leave Mary alone. Since she asks, he tells Evelyn that if she refuses, he'll take the folder away and wait to publish it until after Evelyn dies. Frank leaves the guest house and waits for her to make the decision. Evelyn is shocked and breaks down in tears, but she takes the deal eventually. At the end, Mary is shown attending classes at the university in the mornings and the elementary school in the afternoons. Frank picks her up and brings her to the park to join with Bonnie and the other students. Bonnie and Frank smile at each other with affection, and the movie ends with a safe and sound Mary.